When you're like us and you're getting started in investing, more times than not, everybody recommends you start by investing in yourself. But most people, after they give you that recommendation, they leave it at that and they move on to the next step. But how exactly do you invest in yourself? Where can you start? What are some resources? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting to spend it and be broke again.
Yeah, guys, so jumping right in, we're going to be breaking this video down into a few different areas where you can invest in yourself. Things like health, wealth, happiness, personal growth, relationships, all areas that are very important. So if you want to focus on just one, you can go ahead and skip forward to that part in the video. But we would encourage you to go through all these because to a certain extent, all of them are interconnected.
Yeah, definitely. To live a fully well-rounded life, you want a little bit of the money aspect so you can travel, you can do other things. You want the health aspect so you don't get too ill and you're always in the hospital. You want all of these aspects. So to be well-rounded, you want to touch on all of these.
Yeah, you'll hear people that are wealthy talk about how, now that I have all this wealth, but I didn't focus on my health, I can't even enjoy it.
Exactly.
So like we were saying, a little bit of interconnection there. Encourage you guys to watch the whole video.
Exactly. And I will say in our video, we did a very good job of not only recommending books, because some people don't like books.
Hey.
That is just not their form of learning.
Yeah.
So we try to slip in a ton of different types of mediums in there. Most of them we personally use, if not all of them. In all of these categories, there are a million resources out there and a million different topics and everything you can do within these subgroups. So we're most excited to hear you guys' comments and feedback below.
Yeah.
Like this video, share with a friend, and please, please, please go to the comments and let us know some of the recommendations you have for books, podcasts, websites, anything like that.
We're trying to grow ourselves.
Exactly. We want to learn just as much as you guys want to learn.
All right, guys, starting out with the category that a lot of you might be here for, wealth. There's a million different investing books out there, self-help books, all these things, podcasts, everyone. Hey, our channel, we would like to recommend.
Check it out.
We feel like we have a lot of good information. Everything that we've been talking about on our videos, we do personally, implement in our own lives. But outside of that, there's tons of books. Like a book I would recommend is a book called Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. Now, you may not agree with everything Grant Cardone says. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says. But I think this is actually a really good book. It helps with a little bit of self-reflection of what you really want out of your basically, career life or financial life.
Yeah.
A few chapters in, it asks a lot of good questions that cause some self-reflection. So I would recommend checking that one out. I think it asks a lot of good questions.
Yeah, and the classic one when it comes to wealth that everybody recommends is Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
So we definitely wouldn't say not to recommend that, but you're going to hear that from everyone else out there. And it's a great one to start. It kind of changes your frame of reference, how you think about things. So it's very interesting, again, to change your thought process, but everyone's going to recommend that. So we want to slip it in there, but
Robert Kiyosaki isn't a fan of Grant Cardone.
That's true. That's true.
Different perspectives right there, but all good ones to, consider.
And the last book I'm going to kind of hit really quick is just The Millionaire Next Door. You might have heard others recommend it, but it's a very good book, again, to start that frame of reference of that, a certain way of thinking and how people just think different. And a lot of times it's more mindset than anything to get into that wealth game. But next we're going to move into is a podcast. This company in particular, Bigger Pockets, has a ton of different types of podcasts. So if you're more of a numbers guy, they have one called On the Market that's all about numbers. If you're more of a rookie just trying to get started, they have a rookie podcast. And then they have what we call the OG podcast, just the original podcast that was kind of kicked off. It's the main, like everyone hears about or talks about, and that's the OG podcast. Mostly centered around real estate, almost always centered around real estate and or business. But still, very great podcast to start with because it has so many options, so many places to get started. And for those of you who don't know, I was actually on one of the episodes, which is really cool. We'd love for you guys to listen to that and give us your feedback. Should have been episode 291, I believe. So go check that out and let us know what you think.
Yeah. And on top of that, guys, just networking and everything. Maybe you don't really want to sit down and read or listen to anything. You enjoy more so interacting with someone. Or even if you're not so much that social butterfly, it's great to just push yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Definitely.
Go to meetups, reach out to people that are already experts in that space. If you don't know anybody already in the space, maybe a friend of a friend is kind of thing. So you just kind of have to spread out, create a network of people. We're always networking. We were at meetups in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
So, just expanding that network is so crucial and is really one of the best ways to learn because it's more so hands-on. You really get to see what people are doing out in the space.
Yeah, that meetup we were at yesterday, I was talking to somebody and he mentioned he's been researching one topic in real estate for over a year now. And he said he's been to 3 meetups in the past 2 weeks and he's learned more in those 3 meetups than he has in the past year of research.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to think about, but it's so true because someone's already doing it. They can answer all your questions.
Yeah.
And it gives you more confidence. And next, as we've talked about already a little bit, health goes right along with wealth. Not only because it rhymes, but if you have all the wealth but you have terrible health, you just never focused on it, you're going to get to that age where you finally have everything you want, but you can't enjoy it. You can't spend it because you got to deal with the illnesses. Plus, you just want to live a happy life, and to be happy, you got to have your health, mental and physical. So this is really, really hard to give recommendations because one, there's a billion resources out there.
Oh yeah.
But two, there's so many avenues from just like nutrition is a small category of this. You can go carnivore, you can go vegan, you can go, there's a billion different ways you can go. But the one we recommended is How Not to Die. This is a good kind of starter book template. It bases it all in data and science. And it mostly talks about how the plant-based diet is the best diet. But that's up for interpretation, who you talk to. But it's mostly based in science. It's easy to understand. And the book is by the same guy that created nutritionfacts.org, which you might have come across researching diet, exercise, all of that. But it gives a lot of the basics. Eat more fruit, eat more vegetables, be active daily, stuff like that to stay healthy, stay happy. So another good recommendation we would like to give.
Yeah, guys. And like we were talking about how maybe books aren't really your thing, there is a podcast called The Huberman Lab by Andrew Huberman. He's a professor at Stanford.
Great podcast.
A neuroscientist. Very, very numbers-oriented guy, very smart. If you're a professor at Stanford, I feel like you know your stuff.
And a neuroscientist on top
of
that.
Yeah. I feel like that's a pretty good one to have if you want to talk about all these things. But he's covering like all things health-related and, what effects different things will have. So another great thing to check out, very informative. Find a episode that, you're kind of interested in. I feel like he's probably got it covered somewhere in his repertoire.
Yeah, he covers everything from marijuana to caffeine to the most optimal exercise to he has professional guests on from different universities or Stanford itself. So it's just a great, great podcast that we love listening to and definitely a good recommendation. And next is honestly just to get out there and be active.
Yeah.
Whether you like to run, whether you like to go to the gym, if you hate both, take up a sport, start trying to bike to the beach. Like literally, there's a billion ways to get out there.
Find some way to make it fun, make it a game. It's possible.
Meet up with a neighbor and just go on a small walk while you chit chat instead of sitting on the couch and chit chat. Take out the dog, anything like that. There's a billion ways.
Yeah, do your calf races while you're sitting at your desk.
Remember, we actually started a run group and we got into it a little bit, and we just every night we'd all get together and from someone's driveway and go on a little run.
Yeah. And, having that accountability is great and, having that camaraderie and stuff. And that's another thing we actually didn't mention in the wealth category. But like back in college, we had created a group, because, we didn't have a lot of money to go out and, go to any seminars or anything. But just having a group that you can kind of bounce ideas off of and you all do your own research and you come together to discuss things. I mean, it could be anything, really. Ours just happened to be more so investing oriented, some real estate, stocks, that kind of thing. Because that was something that was interesting to us at the time. But again, could be anything. Just having that accountability, whether it be for a health, wealth, or any of our other categories that we're going to talk about in a second, like relationships and, personal growth. There's so many things that you can do just within a group of people that you trust, or maybe they're new people. But either way, having someone to kind of hold you accountable or have that kind of other exterior motivation can be a great way to help yourself learn.
Yeah, and if you notice, just like we said, they all intertwine, all of them. And so to have good health, we're getting groups of friends together, which is the relationships. To have good wealth, we're also bringing in the relationships and making sure we have good health. So it all is intertwined.
Yeah.
So rolling straight into the next, which we've already kind of touched on, is that relationships aspect. Like we said, it's all intertwined, and that relationships is such a big deal. If you're trying to grow wealth, put yourself near people that are also doing the same thing or have done the same thing you want to do. Same thing with health. If you're trying to get into running, join a running group. If you're trying to get into biking, join a biking group. Go to Orange
who you
Theory.
surround yourself with.
Exactly. So get in that relationship group. Put yourself in that area. And there's just so many great resources out there. A book we personally read is Winning Friends and Influencing People. That's a really good book because it just talks about how to frame a relationship, how to get in the mindset, how to put yourself in other people's shoes, show empathy, not always sympathy. There's just a lot to that book that can really teach you not only to how to win friends, get people to want to like you, but not in a bad way.
Yeah,
but
not in a manipulation.
Exactly. Just in a true heartfelt way.
Yeah.
And the influencing people throws it off a little bit, but it's not like in that way. It's different. So definitely give it a good read. Let us know in the comments what you think. But definitely a book we'd recommend.
Yeah, for sure. And on top of that, just carving out time for those people that you care about, whether it be in kind of like in a group that we did like in college, or now we got a group chat for our runs and everything.
Exactly.
Finding some way to have that line of communication with the people that you care about, the people you want to be in contact with. Maybe you want to just reach out to an old friend. Take that leap. a lot of people get in their heads about things. They're like overthinking, like, oh, well, I haven't talked to them in so long. They haven't reached out to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably thinking the same exact thing in all reality. So, taking that leap, putting yourself out there, carving out time for the people you care about is a great way to just strengthen those relationships that are already there or were there, and you can kind of reestablish.
Yeah, and there's a such thing as giving purposeful time.
Mm-hmm.
If a friend calls you while you're busy with things, you don't
Yeah,
really give them
yeah.
too much of time of day. You just kind of are listening, but you don't really keep in touch. You're not really paying attention. You're not giving them their focus. Versus if you call them, you're focused. Your purpose was to call them, so you're going to give them that time of day.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I love camping. It's not up for everybody. Not everybody loves camping, but I
Yeah.
do, mostly because there's nothing else to do but just sit there and talk. Hang out, be with your friends, be with your
Mm-hmm.
family, and talk. So it's a great way to get closer to people and always build those bonds.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that kind of carries us into the next one of happiness. Now, there are a million different books. People are interested in different things,
Yeah.
so it's kind of hard to recommend one right there. But just reinvesting yourself in the hobbies, like how Ryan mentioned camping. I enjoy the outdoors too, That's a great time, kayaking, camping, whatever it may be. We just enjoy the outdoors, sports, that kind of thing. Finding your hobby or rediscovering your old passions, because a lot of people get lost in, the everyday life.
Yeah.
I got to work, I got to go home, I got to, cook, or I got to eat. Try and carve out time like how you did for relationships. Try and carve out some time for yourself and your hobbies. And you can always bring people along, of course, with these hobbies, like how we go camping from time to time with all our college friends and everything. Or, you go kayaking with some friends, or maybe you're real into crocheting and you find a knitting club. I don't know if those things are different. Crocheting, knitting. I feel like they go a little bit hand in hand, but I do feel like they're different things. But either way, finding what you're interested in and finding a group, or just rediscovering it yourself, is a great way to increase your happiness.
And also, life just is stressful. Life
Oh.
has a lot of pressures that it'll naturally put on you.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so many things we juggle in the day to day. Talking to somebody you trust, it can be a therapist, but it doesn't have to be a therapist. Just having someone you really like or enjoy and trust, talking to your wife or your significant other, that's what you do. That's what I do. When I get home, it's a stressful day. First person I want to talk to is my wife and just get it all off my chest. And they just kind of don't need to solve it. They just are there to comfort you. And that's such a big thing. And that's like kind of what a therapist does, but more professionally. They know the ins and outs. But sometimes you
ties
just
into relationships we were talking
exactly, and sometimes you just need to talk about it. So that could be a parent, that could be a friend, that could be a family member, it could be your significant other, anybody. But it's definitely good and worth talking to somebody every once in a while.
Or I know some people that it works for them, just entering it on a forum, like they found an online community that helps them out.
So rolling into the next one is that personal growth. That's the over umbrella term. And the book I'm going to recommend that Taylor's actually going through right now is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And kind of to give this a one sentence summary, it's basically what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And it goes through the habits of highly successful people. And it's a lot, like we already said, you want to learn from the people that have already done it. So if they're highly successful in something you want to do, then there it is right there. That's something you want to base those skills and those habits on.
Yeah. And I have another kind of book recommendation that goes a little bit alongside that. It's called Atomic Habits. Similar vibes, about creating good habits and everything, but it breaks it down a little bit more to like, trying to improve by 1% every day, focusing more so on your system and your process more so than personal goals. So just kind of a different mindset to kind of approach creating great, effective habits.
Yeah, and that one's been all like flooded the marketplace this year. That's probably one of the biggest books I've seen for personal growth this year. I actually haven't read it, but I'm looking forward. It's on my list for this year. Hopefully I can get to it. We'll see.
Yeah.
But also, again, we're always going to give you more than just the book. So the podcast, if you love podcasts, I really enjoy this podcast. I think it was the first podcast I really got into. It was The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes, I think it is. He was a pro NFL player, and I think he got injured, was trying to figure out what to do, and he started this podcast about basically happiness, being great, how to be the greatest human being you can, but not in a way that he's so great, but bringing in people and being very humble. And it could be anywhere from money to happiness to psychology to everything you could possibly think of. He's had some amazing guests that you probably never heard of, but it's crushing it in their space.
Yeah, because like we said, all connected.
Exactly. So great podcast. If you're always on the go, you have long commutes, definitely give it a listen. I bet you'll love it.
Commutes. But yeah, on top of that, we've talked about it in a lot of these other categories. It's just having some type of accountability partner or having someone you can trust to, and you really just come to them, with an open mind, and you're like, okay, what are some kind of areas I can improve? Having those people that can hold you accountable, tell you where you need to kind of improve, or maybe you want to focus a little bit more on, can be a great resource. Because a lot of times people don't really necessarily realize their own shortcomings or even think of them as shortcomings if they are aware of it. But sometimes a good friend that you trust and you know it's all love right there and everything, they can give you a great kind of mirror to kind of look at yourself truly and be like, okay, these are some areas I need to focus on.
And you have to be open yourself up to accepting that information, and that is where you're going to grow.
Yeah, you can't get too personal about it.
Exactly. When you know you have shortcomings and you're open to receiving that feedback, that's the most growth you'll have.
And if you're one of those people that think you don't have shortcomings, I got news for you. You do.
You're
Everyone
perfect.
does. Yeah. Could be that. But yeah, guys, so as you can kind of see, all this is really interconnected. We hope you watch the entire video because, you know, I think it's all a lot of great stuff. It really helps you be the best person you can be and really helps the people around you. A lot of this stuff is contagious, you know, like I see Ryan on top of his game and everything, it makes me want to do more. So, you know, surrounding yourself with good people, you know, investing in your mind, your health, everything is just super important. It's probably the thing that, you know, you really should focus on the most, or at least constantly. I mean, you hear all these successful people that are successful, they still focus on a lot of these things. They harp on these things, you know, effective habits, maintaining good relationships with people.
Being
so
a great
many
human
people
being.
talk about relationships. Yeah. So there's just a lot to focus on, and we hope you guys really enjoyed this video.
And like we said, we are so excited to hear you guys' comments and feedback. Not only do we want to hear all of your recommendations, all the great resources you guys use, we also want to know if you guys like this type of video. Because this could almost turn into a series where we keep the 5 categories and we give more recommendations or updates. Hey, we read this new book. It would fit great in this category. And here's our latest list of this quarter or of this year. We'd love to do that too, because we want to research and do all of that deep dives for you guys to give you the cold hard truth of this book's not good, this book's great, kind of thing.
Stop wasting money on that dumb shit and instead put it in investment. I know it's tempting, you'll spend it and be broke again.